All right, everybody, welcome to another episode of the Up and In Show. We are here at Cards and Culture on the Purple Couch, and I got a special guest riding up here from the West Bank, my guy Gary Scheffler. Thank you so much for being here. We're going to get in some really cool conversation. You've started a business, you've grown it. It's all about performance and wellness. That's kind of what this podcast is about. So thank you for the time. Thank you for having Abby and I up at your facility. We're going to share some really cool content with that. But why don't you give our guests a quick 1 minute, 2 minute rundown on who you are, what you do, that kind of stuff.
My name's Gary Scheffler, and first off, thank you. I appreciate, the opportunity. I started GLS in 2014. I actually started training 2012. I kind of had told you the story.
Mm-hmm.
I was in recovery, and I just picked up an agility ladder and started working with a kid, and God put his hands on it, and I sit on your purple couch today. So
10 years later, here we are.
Yeah, well, now it's shit. I've been sober 13 years, something like
Congratulations,
that.
that's awesome, yeah.
But my birthday's today.
49. What? Let's go.
So
Happy
I got
birthday,
all kind
man.
of shit going on today.
Damn, this man took time out of his day on his
listen,
day.
That's good. Listen, this is a day off for me, like in a way. But I started the gym in 14. 15, a good friend of mine comes to me with this inside ankle bone high thing, and it sounded stupid to me at first, and I kind of was resistant to it. And then, I had Jamal. Jamal was one of my top clients, Jamal Chase, from the 8th grade through, and then he got hurt, and it all kind of fell in line with the GOATA stuff, and I own GOATA now, and Ricky Stanzi, who was a former collegiate quarterback and got drafted by the Chiefs, and I don't remember which year it was, but he's the only college quarterback to beat Joe Paterno 3 times.
Wow, really?
So that's a statement.
And who was that?
Ricky Stanzi.
Okay, nice.
So we own GOATA together, and then I own GLS, the gym.
Gotcha.
And we kind of, it's one's education and what you saw, the wellness side of it, the movement stuff. Cool. And then GLS is the brick and mortar of the whole operation. So I got a wife, 5 kids, and
5 kids,
a whole bunch of animals we got now. So that was the recent thing. 11 chickens.
What?
I think we got like 2 dogs, 2 cats, 3 rabbits.
You have any goats or anything?
They
Nothing
want
else?
A goat.
Yeah, I had a goat. No joke. My dad had a goat growing up.
You got to get them in
chickens.
pairs, I think.
I think so too. Yeah.
Everything you need in pairs, just in case a flood comes.
We had we had 2 goats. Then we added a 3rd too when I was growing up. I got so much shit growing up because I went to this high school down by the beach. And everybody thought I was like this redneck and like a farmer and everything. It was funny, but I was like, I loved it.
Because you're from Jersey, huh?
Yeah, Jersey, yeah. All right, so let's. So I came down to the West Bank, down to your facility, and we did a little workout together. So what I walked into, that's what GLS is, right?
Correct.
And what does that stand for?
Gary Lee Scheffler.
Let's go.
It used to be Next Level Performance, and when I started getting legal with everything and registering the names and stuff like that, they was like, listen. Next Level Performance is going to be a problem.
Right.
It's like they got Next Level Performance, air conditioner, everything.
Exactly. Everything's Next Level Performance.
So I was like, just put GLS in front of it. And then over time, the kids just started GLS. And, and I was like, let's drop Next Level Performance, roll with GLS. And then now we joke around, it's God's locomotive system. So it worked out in a bunch of different ways.
I love it. And then GOATA, right, is now the education system, and that's kind of what we did when we went down there. Correct.
Y'all go through the evaluation, and then we build a regimen based off of what we find, and we kind of put you through some of that regimen or whatever, and then we put it in the app, and we progress it from there.
And so what Gary's talking about was corrective exercises, basically. And if you guys have been listening, subscribing, on the podcast for a minute, over the years, I've had a lot of people come on talking about performance, wellness, moving the body. If you guys, have been here for a minute, you've heard my journey talking about, injuries and things that I've experienced. And over the last, 3 to 5 years that I've been in the wellness fitness industry, I truly believe that corrective exercises, is the future of sports performance, individual performance, especially as, technology, phones, that kind of stuff advances. I think that, and that's where you said you do a lot of remote training even, right, with people, right?
Yeah, so we do like virtual, the assessment, basically they'll send in video, break the video down, send it back to them, voice it over. I use Coach's Eye. They got a lot of technology out there. I always joke around and I say the same thing that we ruin ourselves with, we're going to fix everybody
Absolutely.
with. So, kind of I guess that's the silver lining in the iPad is we've made ourselves comfortable. We've advanced in technology, but the strength and conditioning world is still stuck in 100 years ago.
Absolutely.
And now what they have done with technology, what it is they've taken and found ways to measure what don't work.
Exactly.
Force plates and things like that. So the iPad gives us the ability to see. 1080p, I think, came out in 2015, and that gave us the ability to stop and pause it and see the foot frame by frame and what's happening at the foot and ankle. So we could fine tune that. And then basically what we did with GOATA is we went in and we went look at who wasn't hurt.
Right.
So we studied, what the baby was doing, what the indigenous were doing, 97-year-old tribesmen still out there hunting and stuff. Then we looked at the pin relays. We looked at the 80 to 100-year-old division, Ida Keeling, Hurricane Hawkins, these athletes that was able to perform. And I mean, it's naturally they're not running 10.5s or nothing at 100, but they still running.
Yeah,
you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
I limped across the street today. But it's and then we looked at Reed, Michael Jordan, guys that Simone Biles who performed late into their careers and basically retired because it was just time to stop playing.
Yeah. Well, that's why I think we're in this era right now with the phones, the technology, the information, right? I think that's why we're seeing people perform at these extraordinary levels, but we're also seeing injuries, right? Mm-hmm. I think we're getting this information, but it's so new that people are performing at the high level, but then breaking down. So that's why I'm excited to kind of unpack what you do, what you've discovered, and the things that you kind of taught me when I came down there, or at least that, made me aware of. So let's talk about some of the things that you guys have discussed. Actually, I'm kind of like, what made you start from the primitive state, where you were saying, let's look at the foot, let's look at how a baby moves and look at indigenous people. Where did that idea come from for you?
So Gilly Bosch is the original. He's the godfather. He's the OG, right? Okay. Like he's the first guy. He came to me and basically it was an undeveloped system. It was just it was a concept. It was an idea. And because the being able to use slow motion video was relatively new from a training standpoint. Yeah. I mean, they had it, but it was like the media companies and stuff.
Exactly.
You had to have some serious money to have something that could do it. And then the resolution wasn't good enough to really superimpose on something and break it down frame by frame without it blurring out or anything like that. So he was already looking at the indigenous. We started looking at the crawl pattern of the baby because it was like, okay, if the indigenous, we go into them because they haven't sat in a couch, they haven't rode in a car, well, neither did the baby.
Right.
So let's take a look at, and then the thing is the baby's innate. So when you talk about the baby, it's nobody taught the baby crisscross applesauce.
Right.
Nobody taught the baby how to sit in Caesar.
Right.
Nobody taught the baby how to squat.
Yep.
These things are instinctive and they're innate, and that's what we have to go in and look at because that's not what we're doing in the weight room, and it's not what we're doing in regular day life, right? Yep. We would have to sit in a squat and have this conversation if we was in an indigenous culture, whereas we get to relax here.
Yeah, that would be kind of funny, just sitting in a squat
position
with a little microphone.
It'd be real funny, me and you trying to do it.
Yeah, especially after the assessment that you showed me. If we show any of those clips, people would know I got about 3 seconds, and probably that's about it, maybe.
Yeah, there was a couple of times in there I thought you was gonna punch me. And
I told Abby, I was like, sometimes trainers are like not scared to work with me, but they're like, I don't know if I want to work with this motherfucker. He might kill me one day. I'm just asking him to do it.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah,
It challenges everybody.
Yeah.
And listen, the thing is, you stayed in there and you did it.
Yeah.
And a lot of guys walk away. I have had people, and I'm not gonna say names, they just stop.
Yeah.
And I think it's because they can't.
Yeah.
They can't at the moment.
Right. And it's gonna catch up with you eventually. And that's one thing that I think, at 33 years old, sitting here, being able to reflect on my career. I remember when I was 20 years old, the Boston Red Sox, giving me a routine for ankle mobility, toe strengthening. And I was like, what the fuck is this? I don't need this. I'm still throwing the ball 95 miles an hour, and I could get healthy enough to stay on the field and everything. But as I aged, I realized, you know, how important that stuff is. And if I would have started that at 20, what kind of habits would that have built? What kind of athlete could I have turned into? You know, that kind of stuff.
Right.
So instead, for the last 13 years, I've just been doing it the wrong way, you know, and developing my own patterns. So, and that's what I think, you know, coming back to the baby, the indigenous thing is, you know, Western civilization, we do so much. It's designed for, you know, comfortability and laziness and things like that. So we develop these habits over years, and that's what you guys are kind of unpacking and retraining, right, with GOATA?
Yeah. Well, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off or whatever, but we basically reverse engineer movement.
Right, and that's what I want to get to. And that's where, even when, I think we could probably cut in the clips, but do you remember the one when you made me, you gave me weight and you were I was kind of bent over and I was struggling and I was like, I can't put the neurology together.
Right.
And you made me, okay, let's go backwards. Let's end how I want you to end. And we went like
we
reverse
worked our way.
Yeah.
I actually did that recently. I started doing that with my receivers, and the change of direction has changed tremendously. Everybody trains like, and just as an analogy type, you take a wide receiver, everybody starts the route at the line. Well, the injury typically don't happen at the line. At the line, it usually happens more at the break. So you reverse engineer a route from the break backwards, where most of these guys are out there and they just worried about throwing tennis balls, dancing around some garbage cans and stuff like that. And it's like, let's get realistic. Like, the receiver coach is going to make you run the route tree.
Right.
Let's train a route tree. Let's dial it in. Let's start from the end, work our way backwards to the line. That way we could build secure landings through repetition. What you had and what you struggled with is that your reps don't line up with movement. So when I put you in a movement situation, your brain couldn't even process it.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. And it's
a mind fuck.
It's really like, when you think about it, is why did we go back to the baby? Because somebody had to teach us the right way.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? So it's like, when you're looking for what's natural and you're looking for the easiest thing is who's not hurt. Science and medical is always, let's take 100 people and let's throw this, and this at them. A control group, right? And that's why we've given those people a hard time. But, you know, it's without them we couldn't do what we do. You know, we got to know what's going on under the hood. But it's also like, there's a common sense element that I feel like we walked away from in therapy and stuff like that.
Yeah. And some of it's really simple, right? Like, I mean, when I started when I invested into F45, my first gym here, we started training with my shoes off, and that kind of opened my eyes to the importance of toes, feet, gait, all of that. So talk to me about how important your gait is, and like how that's probably one of the first things to the foundation of the assessment, right, that you guys do and then start with.
So there is one way to travel through space. There's one optimal way to do it. There's one best way. And that's what we identified. And we identified it by looking at those different groups of people.
So basically you took all the babies, the indigenous, the top performers. You said, this is the way they stand. This is the way they perform. Their feet move, everything, right?
Yes, there was a consistency amongst them.
Yep.
You could, you know, we've trained triple extension with no, there's no critique to it. When the foot comes off the ground, which way should it go? Right. Should the heel go in or should it go out?
Right.
We went down and we looked at those things, and then we realized, well, some of these things we can't do. But from the reason, if you look at it like this, the digestive system, your pulmonary system, there's all these systems of the body that have one optimal way to produce. Right. Why wouldn't the musculoskeletal system have one optimal way to do it?
Right.
And some of it, when you start looking at the difference, some of the stuff I showed y'all, it's aesthetically pleasing.
Yeah.
You know, like when you start looking at the body and stuff like that, like the shoulders being back as opposed to roll forward, it even looks better.
Right.
You know.
It's more, well, I think so. I think people are. It's funny to me when people are like, oh, oh, you want to be big and strong so it's more aesthetically pleasing. I'm like, that's a byproduct of it. Yeah, I'm stronger, I'm faster, I move better, and that's biologically attractive to women, right? Or the opposite sex, right? Like, right. Because primitively, that's what protected people. That's what kept a good family and then allowed you to reproduce and stuff. So, yeah, you're going to move better, you're going to look better. It's all going to kind of go in place together, right? Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, no, and it's that there's pre-movement. Just like you would have your car, there's an alignment, right, that has to be maintained. And then there's a movement. So there's a part to the car that has to move, and those things have to work properly too. Yeah. So it's, when we look at the body from the front, we're looking for straight feet. It's the medial malleolus, but we call it the inside ankle bone because it's easy to teach. Inside ankle bone high, you should have an arch in your foot. The foot is designed that way. And it's in the way that the foot functions, it needs to have a high arch. It doesn't mean that you can't perform without a high arch. It just means that eventually it's going to catch up to you, right? It's a death by 1,000 reps, basically.
The flat foot?
A flat foot, yeah, if you don't have the arch in the foot. Because what happens is like getting into like the medical side of it more or less, or kind of look under the hood. The talus, the tibia and fibula connect to the talus, and the talus sits behind the navicular bone. If that talus is locked in place, that means the shin's locked in place. Gotcha. On a flat foot, it's typically locked in place, so you'll see that athlete duck their foot out because now they can only hinge the foot instead of the foot behaving more like a ball and socket. So when you free up the foot and ankle complex, it allows the athlete to perform with a straight foot, but that's how the body is designed to move through space on a straight foot platform. And how many people are duck-footed?
Oh, yeah, I know.
It's a whole society.
Yeah. Well, what do you do so I have a super high arch, and that can be, so what is that if you're too arched?
It could, you could have too much of anything, right? Like there's a happy middle. I wouldn't do nothing. I would pay it. Training barefooted is going to help. Yeah. What we found out is that when we rep the body out in the pattern that it's supposed to be, anatomical structure could be changed. I showed you the before and afters of those kids that was super in valgus, and then they got straight legs. So you can use the pattern to pull valgus out. You could take somebody that's overbowed, you could pull them in. Somebody that would have too high of an arch, you could bring it down a little bit if you had to. No, as long as the body is repped out the way that it's supposed to be used, then it'll all go back to the way it should be.
Yeah. And you said this when we were looking at some video. You said, so a little bit of bow actually might mean that that's a good thing, right, for like an elite athlete?
Yeah, typically when we see somebody that has like a slight bow to their leg or whatever, the knee might sit like a little bit on the inside of on the outside of the ankle. Yeah. What that does is it kind of takes and it turns the shin this way a little bit, so it makes that inner ankle bone sit up a little bit, which gives it the ability to kind of swivel open. Yep.
Jared Mitchell, I don't know if you remember that name. You remember Jared Mitchell?
I remember the name, yeah.
Played college football and baseball. Him and Chad Jones were the first guys to win a national championship in both football and baseball. And him and I have been fascinated. He had been on my podcast a couple times, and we had talked about elite athletes and how if you watch the NFL, if you watch the NBA, some of these elite athletes that are performing at the highest level, they have a lot of commonality, and a lot of them are bow-legged. And you look at that, and you look where the calf sits, how that relates to their hips and the ability to move in space. And that's why it's interesting that I hear, even when I went down there and the cues that you were saying, it's really, really interesting. So
you go down in the playground right now, and there's this tippy-toed, bow-legged kid that's beating the shit out of some flat-footed kid right now.
It's happening right now in the world
right now,
somewhere.
As we're speaking, somewhere in the world it's going on. Yeah. And that kid's going to go and he's going to dominate. Yep. And then he turns 13 or 14 years old. He gets introduced to the weight room, and then all of these little red flags start to happen. Yep. Tight back. We start actually taking these things away. And I did it. I sat on both sides of it.
Yeah, exactly.
You know what I'm saying? So I know it's better. I mean, like when Abby would come in there, it was like if you don't throw up, you didn't work out
Right,
today.
exactly, yeah. It was like just work as hard as you could. If you were sweating, then you did your job and everything. And now it's work smarter, not harder, right?
Yeah,
like,
well, what we found is that you build efficiency through doing the right thing.
Exactly.
So when the body's traveling through space in the right way, if a pitcher's throwing the ball the right way, if the quarterback's throwing, if the sprinter's running, the efficiency, one, it removes the doubt in the sense of, man, am I going to throw this pitch and my UCL is going to blow out?
Exactly.
Like that's the things that hold you hostage, right?
Yep.
So when you feel good, you play good. And then everything else comes behind it.
Yep.
And like I told y'all at the gym, Jamar Chase ain't in the NFL because of me, by no means. You know what I'm saying? He has a God-given gift. If you trash, you trash. If you could play, you could play.
You're gonna
like you're not gonna. You didn't just throw 100.
Right. But I threw 100 or Jamar Chase, right? The difference is playing for 4 years or playing for 12, right?
Yeah.
Like that's
and
the
I hope
biggest
he
difference.
plays for 12.
Exactly.
Right? I haven't seen him in 2 years, but you know.
When you get him back down there, so that way he's staying on the field.
Well, I'm actually I work for Smith, the tight end.
Yeah.
So I got to go to every single Bengals game.
Really?
And work on Irv before the game. Yeah.
Wow. Who are some other athletes that you're working with right now that you
Currently,
can talk about?
Juwan Johnson is probably my top guy.
Okay.
Who's
he play with?
The Saints, the tight end for the Saints. Jameis Winston, both my guys, Sean, with the Saints this weekend.
I love it.
And Jameis
Jameis
had a
looked
really
good,
good game.
right?
Juwan had 2 balls thrown to him. He had 2 catches for
All right,
30
my Saints
yards.
dude, you like them or what? Are they good Saints guys? Joe's a big NFL, Saints fan. He's a college football guy, so what?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I believe in Jameis.
We
I like Derek
Jameis.
Carr, obviously, but I believe in Jameis, yeah. No, Juwan's great. Hey, every time Juwan catches a pass, it's a touchdown, it feels like.
I love it.
Yeah. Yeah, he was the guy that came in and he's like, some guys, and we real tight. So it's like, for lack of better words, sometimes people got to experience the other side of it, right? He went out 2 years ago. He went to Miami. The offseason before that, he worked with me. Last year, he went to Miami, and then he got hurt. And when he walked into camp, he pulled his groin first week. So he calls me up. He's like, look, dude, whatever you got to do, curse me out, beat on me or whatever, but get me right.
Yep.
And so we started working back the first week of preseason last year. And then this year he was like, I'm not making that mistake again.
I love it.
I'm in the lab.
I love
and he's going to be he got the money now. He just had a baby, so he's real motivated.
Yeah, I love it.
It's been good. But I work with them. Dre Cisco from the Jaguars is a guy towards ACL his senior year in college. He was still like the first pick of the 3rd round or something like that. And his agency had hooked me up with him. I actually was doing some stuff for athletes first a while back. I was working with Micah Parsons a little bit, the linebacker.
Nice. Yep.
Adafe Owe.
Nice.
Those guys all came in last offseason. But the offseason that passed, it was mostly Juwan. Jameis did about 3 months with me. And then I do the virtual thing with a bunch of guys. A lot of rehab work.
Yeah.
Jordan Smith, he actually led the team in tackles. He's an edge rusher for the Jaguars. See, what happens is they start talking to each other.
Yeah, exactly.
And
Word
it's
of mouth.
like, man, listen, stop fooling with this.
Yep.
Call this dude up in New Orleans and get down there.
That's the way it goes, And then like we'd be in the clubhouse, right, and be like, dude, my elbow's fucking killing me.
Yeah.
And be like, oh, dude, I dealt with that a couple years ago, but my boy hooked me up. Like he figured this out. One thing leads to another. Give him a call, I'll hook you up. That's the way it goes, and that's how you know you're doing it right from your perspective, right? It's, I don't want to say validation, but at least, you know what I'm saying? Like, people are vouching for you.
They believe
in
it.
Yeah, that's the best marketing that you could ever ask for,
100%.
too, right? Like,
Word of mouth.
Yep.
That eval, when you see that eval, it's going to humble you.
Yeah.
But it also, at the same time, is going to tell you why.
Exactly.
And that's the big thing, I think, for athletes, especially on the mental side of it is man, I've been doing everything I'm supposed to do. I work my ass off. I do what the therapist tells me. I do what the strength coach tells me. And the guy next to me is throwing 100 with no arm pain, but I got arm pain.
Exactly.
Why is that? Am I broken?
Yep.
And then when you go in there and you show them the eval and you say, well, it's starting at your foot.
Yeah.
And if you fix this, blah, 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 and you give them a plan, Well, now they have a belief system.
Exactly.
And then once you develop a belief system, it's hard to deter somebody from their goal. And that's the special part of GOATA is we can tell you why.
Yep.
So there's an education side of it too that we give to our athletes and all. So that's important. But Hayden Travinski, LSU's catcher.
Dude, that was his story this year. I mean, if anybody watched LSU baseball, which we have a lot of listeners that do, Hayden was a huge part of that team, and so he came to you, right? And
basically he was like, man, there's a story that goes behind it, and maybe one day he'll sit right here and tell that to you. But when he came to me, I'm like, listen, you did everything else the other way.
Yeah.
Let's try this.
Yeah, let's try this.
And he never missed a practice.
Yes.
You know what I'm saying? Yeah. So he was a big case, and just for whatever reason, every time he tells the story, it don't get put out.
No, I love it.
So.
All right. Well, I've always, Abby and I were on the ride home. We were hella motivated, and I've kind of shared with everybody at the shop that it's really weird how I still think I'm going to throw a baseball someday in a game, because like the way my last pitch went, I took a line drive off the hand and I walked off injured, and so I'm not saying I'm going to play Major League Baseball again. I'm not saying I wouldn't, but I've always dreamt of playing professionally again one more time, to throw a pitch and walk off on my own. So if I were to come to you and say, hey man, obviously I went through the assessment, how would you go about writing a plan for me?
Based off your, not specifically what I do, but I would give you an intro regimen. That intro regimen is designed to decompress the body. So what happens is when you start to, compression is your enemy no matter what system of the body. Right. If a lung is compressed, you can't breathe. If a vein is compressed, you can't. If a joint is compressed, then you can't move.
So explain what that is, because you hear that a lot, but what does it mean when something's compressed?
Compressed just means it's tight, it's closed up.
So how does a joint get compressed?
So irregular movement, right? Gotcha. So if that arch collapses,
gotcha.
And that could be from a multitude of reasons. Bad shoes. Right. You deactivate the foot when you put a shoe on. 100%. You take away. There's a whole bunch of muscles and ligaments and tendons in there that have to work in order for everything up the chain to work. When you turn that off, all hell sets in. Now, when you go into the weight room, you magnify the problem if you're in there with because it shortens the lifespan. I mean, and this is the other thing too that I always say is if we live to be 100, it would have been a bad joke by God for our tendons and ligaments to last like 40 years.
Yeah, exactly.
Right? Like that wouldn't have been cool. So your body should last you as long as you're alive, right?
Yeah.
But in the compressing, so irregular movement could create compression. The nervous system's job is to shut you down. So when your body starts moving irregularly and a hamstring gets tight, hip starts getting a little compressed, the knee could be getting a little compressed. When you go in and we give you your regimen and we give you the right inputs, the nervous system backs off. Mm-hmm. And its job is to protect you. Right? Yeah. So like if you cold and you go outside, you're going to shiver until you put on a jacket. Right. If your nervous system, you're going to have some type of reaction. Your body's going to tell you, and it's compression. It's going to lock up. Yeah. So then when we give the right inputs, it backs off. Yeah. That's why somebody that ain't moving right but's working the system feels so much better is because the nervous system's backing off a little bit. So when we get these guys that come in, we decompress them. Now it gives us the ability to get those feet back in place. If this is closed up, I can't move it.
Exactly.
If I open it up, well, now I can shape it and move it and do whatever I got to do with it. So once we decompress the body, we realign it. We teach it how to load again from a bilateral.
Love it.
So, both feet at the same time. Then we go into a split stance type unilateral setting, and then we teach you how to move again. So it's a process.
Yes, I love it.
And that process we do, like I said, we could do it virtually. We got do-it-yourself programs. If you go to GOATAmovement.com, there's RECODE 225, and we also have a certification for trainers and coaches. And I mean, we get a little bit of everything in there, parents and all of that.
I want to go over the certification. So talk to me a little bit about that. I do have some trainers, and people that are interested. A lot of people nowadays too, right? Just like getting certified, like being educated.
Yeah.
Talk to me about your guys' certification program.
So we do a level 1. You get into the level 1, and it's basically $100 deposit.
Okay.
And it's kind of going to give you in detail and show you exactly what GOATA is in comparison to other systems. And then it shows you like some of the intro work that you would do. So it gives the trainer a chance to go in there and kind of feel it out, see it, because it is a see-feel technology, right? Like we showing you this eval, we showing you how the body should move, and now we got to get you to see it and feel it at the same time.
Exactly.
So whenever we do that, it's 3 Zoom classes over 3 weeks, and we give you some homework assignments and things like that. Then you have the option to move into the level 2.
Okay.
The level 2, if you sign up for it at that time, there's a discount involved with it, a little momentum to get you in. But the level 2 teaches you how to assess movement.
Okay.
And it gives you more of an understanding of what's happening under the hood, kind of like, the only thing that would allow us to see what's really going on is slow motion video, right? The body is pressurized when it's on its feet. So that's why a lot of open chain stuff don't work. Like the chiropractors are great. We love them. We love we love the body work people. I do body work myself. But if you moving bad, you're just going to walk to the car and you're going to start setting compression back into the body. Right. So it only lasts so long. So we do have a lot of chiropractors and stuff that are now coming in. They're getting certified. They're doing what they specialize in. They're giving a couple of exercises for them to take home. And they're maintaining their client base, but they're seeing them less, or they're seeing them more for the right reason.
Nice.
Which those things should be wellness products.
100%.
It shouldn't be a fix.
Right.
Yeah.
And then is there a third level, or is it just the
third level would be more like an advanced curriculum where you come down to GLS and you spend a month with me or something like
cool.
that. So
and then
we've had a few people do that.
Yeah, that's cool. Yeah, no, I'm a big fan of it, man. And I'm, Abby and I are talking about implementing it, and I've already done it. When you're open and exposed like that, like you said, it humbles you. And it's like now the last week I've been like, before I even do anything at F45 or whatever, I'm doing a little prep work at my place, like doing all this stuff, just implementing some of the stuff that we did on the ground. Remember the first things, like the pulses and things like that. So those kinds of things spark me, and I love it. So I'm excited to see kind of what it does. And I kind of want to go through some sort of program. So I'm excited to see like what we can do.
Yeah, man, we'll get you to throw. I'll get you to throw.
I'm gonna throw 100. Again. I never threw 100 before. I hit 98, 99, so it would be fucking dope at 35 years old to throw 100.
Well, you got the length to pull it off. And then this is the thing. I can promise you, when you got into college, you wasn't moving right.
Fuck no.
Yeah.
I didn't know. You want to hear something so funny, too? Like, my high school was so small, and, like, we didn't have football. My dad purposely sent me to this high school so I could just play basketball and baseball. He knew I would get recruited to play football and all that stuff. And so we barely worked out. I didn't work out to my senior year of high school, like, nothing at all. And so then when I got down to LSU, my strength coach was like, "You've never done anything," and I was like, "Nope." He had to pull me aside and put like this stick on my back and teach me how to squat and everything. Yeah. And luckily, he was 6'7" as well, so like he could teach me some stuff. But I knew I wasn't moving right, And then they try to load it up and teach you how to like squat 500 pounds with doing it wrong. And then sure enough, 3 years later, I broke down. Had injuries, all that stuff.
Yeah. It's unfortunate, but that's I hear this story all the time.
And the crazy part is, and what I tell people is like, I threw 96, 97 moving wrong. I want to see at least, like, I feel like it's
what
only
you
fair.
What you threw when you got to college?
When I first showed up at college, I was like 88 to 91, 92. I would maybe touch 93. Then I think just from actually working out, growing up, physical.
Maturing into a man.
Exactly. Then I was like 92 to 96. Yeah. And I moved pretty decent my freshman, sophomore, junior year. And then again, right, we talk about how the nervous system and things protect you. I had really bad, like, from pushing off the rubber, I would get these bad blisters on my foot. And so I think to try to avoid that, I just kept coming off the ground, right? And you know how important ground force is and like being attached and all that stuff, right? And so I just kind of like kept taking my foot off. And I think that developed bad habits over years. And that just led to injuries and things like that.
100%. And then you threw a ball. It's kind of like the track athlete. They run the track in the same direction all the time. Yeah. And all the big time track athletes that make it far in their career on a left leg injury because the foot changes due to running the curve. So, I mean, a simple solution is just running in the other direction.
Yeah, exactly.
But it's like, you can't do that. Like they got so many you can't do that, and I'm like, we do this shit every day.
Yeah, you can.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's one thing I learned in this business is not to let someone else's limitations become yours.
Yep. I love
And
that.
I mean, you could carry that with life.
Yep.
Little kids out there.
Love
pay
it.
attention.
Little tidbits. But in baseball, they were so crazy about that shit. Like, this is the way we do it. Like, you can't do it. I'm like, okay, well, I'm going to try it at least. And then I think even at the end of my career, I wish I would have been more open-minded to new coaches coming up and being like, "Yo, have you tried this? Have you tried this?" You know, and I was just like, "I'm gonna do it my way. I'm gonna do it my way." You know.
Yeah.
So I think everybody can take it a little bit, you know, and even apply it to your own personal stuff too.
Yeah, I mean, I got dads that come in that, man, all they want to do is be able to go down to the mailbox in the morning and not hurt.
Right.
Or go sit down and watch their kid play a basketball game without their back acting up. So I've had everything in there from I had a lady call me up that I worked on her back, that I helped her with her back trouble. She must have been pushing 70 years old.
Yeah.
And when she called, she was like, "I'm looking for Gary." And I'm like, "This is Gary." And she's like, "Is you the guy that heals people?" And I'm like, that's a strong statement. I'm like,
yes, I'm a healer.
yeah.
Yes, whatever you need.
Come in here, and, you know, and it's like you don't even realize what you're doing until you do it.
Right.
You know, and it's like it's very rewarding.
Yeah.
You know, and it's tough because we've had to kick down a lot of doors because, like I told you before, like I was patronized in the beginning a lot of times when I had Jamal. Because any strength coach in the country would talk to you because the head coach is drooling over the opportunity, you know. So I went through all of that, and it got to the point where I was like, you know what? These dudes ain't gonna hear me until I yell at them.
Yeah.
And then you throw a couple of people under the bus, and next thing you know, you're an asshole. So now you get, well, it's the way you deliver it. And I'm like, well, you didn't listen to me the first time.
Yeah, exactly. I had to try something else.
Yeah,
exactly.
so I did. And we took a lot of heat, and we backed off that stuff now. But it was like a marketing plan at one time, was just to be an asshole.
Really?
Because people want to see a train wreck. They don't want to see somebody that's, and then I will say this too in their defense. There's so much snake oil out there, and there's so many scams, dude.
Yeah.
It's like, but I've went as far as to like take a video, break it down, show it frame by frame, and then a strength coach get on there and go, "Well, that's not what's really happening." I'm like,
there's a video that's just showing.
Well, this study says that blah blah blah. I'm like, dude, y'all need to let that shit go.
Yeah.
Let that study shit go. Because avocados are good 1 month and they bad the next month. Eggs are good 1 month and they bad. And tell me a study that's ever been consistent.
Right. No.
There's not. It's whoever's paying for it and whatever motive or narrative they pushing is what's
100%. No, historical data is obviously the best way to look at things. Or, you know, like history is going to repeat itself. And
it does.
Yep. And the eye test.
We play gorilla ball, we play small ball. We play gorilla ball, we play small ball. Which one is it? What team we got this year?
Exactly, right.
You know, so.
Yeah, I love that. You're absolutely right, though. It's like what studies come out that we can market this around and run with this, you know, and there's always a new method, a new diet, a new something, right? But like you said, the human body is designed to perform optimally, and there's people that have done it over time. So I appreciate what you're doing, and I'm happy to be a part of it. And like you said, when you're making people feel good, there's no better feeling than that, you know. And when you're injured, and I've dealt with a lot of injuries, or even when you're sick, right? I'm a little under the weather right now. Even you can probably hear it in my voice. It's like you take for granted what it feels like to feel good, to be healthy, right? To move well. So that's why I think, you know, you get those phone calls about like, are you the healer? It's like everybody's experience is different because they could have been in pain for fucking 20 years, right?
Yeah.
And then you unlock something.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden changes their life.
And they go through this, you know, I went, and this year I went 6 months of physical therapy, and this year I did this, and that year I did that. I've been having sciatic pain for 15 years. They come in the gym, we put them on the ground for 15 minutes, we crawl them. Yeah. And when you give that input to the nervous system, it's like the numbness goes away. And they blown away, but it's really, when you think about it, the reverse engineering side of it, it unlocks the body. Yeah, it makes sense. It frees it up. Yeah. It only makes sense. Yeah. And that's why I think it's been successful. And we haven't caught a break yet, in the sense of Nike ain't walked in yet and said, "Hey, let us get behind you, just wear our shirts." Yeah. You know what I'm saying?
I get you.
So it's gonna take its toll, and in God's time it'll be what it is.
And that's what how that goes, right? You keep doing the right thing over time, and that's the thing is like in today's world of immediate gratification, it's easy to look at the phones and see stuff and everything out there. But when you treat people right, you do the right thing over time, like the right things happen for you, and I think that's happening, and people will start paying attention and that kind of stuff. So. Just keep doing that stuff. I think it's going to happen and everything like that. So thank you.
I appreciate it.
All right, Gary, before I let you go, man, I appreciate the time. I know you're busy and stuff. But when I was working out, we were sharing some stories, just about my journey, my career, some things that I was sharing with you. You had some funny stories. Do you have any things that you can share that guys would be okay with, girls, anything that, that we could share with anybody?
There's probably two that would kind of, when Jamal was coming out of his junior year, we did a thing with NOLA.com, and we broke down, like I was basically explaining like all what I thought of him as a receiver, like
in a positive way, like all the good things.
He could do all these things my combine guys can't do, he was in high school, you know what I'm saying, and I'm talking about, if I don't remember word for word exactly what it was, but it was like, if he's pressed, he could do this, and if he at the end of the day you could just throw it up deep to Jamal, and then I said something about he loves Des Bryant, but I think he's better vertically and stuff like that. And like people was like, dude, like the comments and the NOLA thing was like, this dude's an idiot. He thinks that this kid's going to be Des Bryant or something like that.
I love that.
And I'm sitting there. But also with Jamal, we got a fantasy football draft, and I drafted Jamal in high school because you carry your team as long as you want. It's one of these, I don't know what they call it. It's a decade league or something like that. But anyway, Dynasty, that's what it is. So I drafted him in high school, and I'm sitting there, and these dudes are drinking at the draft. And I'm like, dude, this is serious shit, dude. And then his rookie year, his rookie year, he had the game against the Chiefs.
Yeah.
Well, that was the last week of fantasy. Well, when I put him on my team when he was in high school, this guy sitting next to me goes, dude, he's in fucking high school, bro. I said, chill out.
Yeah, I know.
I beat him in a championship.
No, it was that guy?
With that Chiefs game.
It was that guy?
And it was that dude when Jamal was a rookie.
Did you remind him and let him know?
Oh, yeah, he knew because I went me, Lil Gritty, because Gritty trained with me too. The dude that does the dance.
Yeah.
Me, Gritty,
I love that.
Donald Clay. There was a whole bunch of us that went up to that game when he went off. He had 3 touchdowns, 260 yards against the Chiefs, and Darrell Williams had 125 yards and 2 touchdowns. I had 5 touchdowns come out my gym in that one game, and it wasn't even in New Orleans.
Oh God!
So like I'm in there, and I was like, when I won that league, I sent the video from inside. We was in the suite, and I'm like, dude, true owners make sure they at the games and make sure that their dudes are. That was fun. But
that is awesome.
Darrell signed with the Saints,
Yeah.
Yeah, Darrell works out with us,
I love that.
He's been with me since he left LSU.
That's cool.
Yeah. But George Kittle puts us.
I love that. When you tell a story, you just chuckle for it. You're like,
literally, like, we in a cabin in the woods. He's got like 75 acres or something crazy.
He flew you guys up there to train, right?
So we go out there. Me and Ricky's out there. He's like, man, took care of us. Like, the Kittle family is like unbelievable. The whole family.
That's awesome. I love.
He brings us out to this cabin in the woods, and it's on his property or whatever. And he puts us in this place. It's all glass too, so you could see out. It's pitch black.
Damn.
You wake up in the morning, the sun's out. They got deer everywhere. It was beautiful, but at the same time, and George is a clown. Like, if you were around this guy, like, he's a funny dude. Like, he'll do some crazy shit.
Yeah.
So we go to his house for dinner, like the second or third night or something, it was closer to the end.
Yeah.
Because Rick had to fly out the next day, and he starts talking about horror movies and stuff. And I'm like, dude, George, stop, bro.
We're in the woods.
You got me in the woods, dude. Like, I'm in the middle.
House.
Well, I always had my gun with me or whatever. And like, because I drove up there because I brought like a sled. They didn't have some stuff, so I brought it. And that night, Rick's like, dude, I got to fly home a day early. And I'm like, you can't leave? He's like, well, you know how to do this shit. I'm like, dude, I'm in the fucking woods in this cabin. And we've been talking about
like,
horror
I'm not worried
stories.
about the training.
Yeah, they in there, me, Ike Bodiger, and it's like cool. I'm like sitting in there, and Kittle's like, yeah, like you watch Halloween. It's like he's like a kid. Like he's having fun.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? So we doing all of that or whatever, and then Rick leaves the night before, and I sure enough did sleep. I didn't sleep. I'm like, you can't get away from it. It's like then you're hearing shit. Like shit's creaking.
And then
in the
Kittle's
woods.
out in the woods with
that's what I was waiting
mask.
for. Him to be coming around. I told him, I said, dude, I will shoot you, bro. This
That's
will
why
be
he didn't.
the most epic NFL story ever, because you will get killed on your property, and you'll have a Jason mask or something on.
That's what he was doing. He was trying to set the scene. He's like, I'm going to scare this motherfucker, and then I'm going to be there with the Jason mask. But then you scared the shit out of him. He's like, actually, this Louisiana
like, this dude's
motherfucker.
from New Orleans. I better be careful with what I do.
He's like, never mind, my plan's over. But that's hilarious.
But yeah,
but he's a clown. Like, he's funny like that.
He's awesome.
I love that.
He's a great guy.
He seems
He
like
just
it.
didn't really buy into the GOATA thing. He kind of did some of the groundwork. And what happened is you need time in the program.
Yeah.
He didn't have the time he needed. We went up there a week before. T.J. Hutchinson was up there. Rob Tunyon. They had about 7 or 8 of the tight ends from the tight end youth thing. So it was fun. It was a great experience. He's got to cook. They cook for you and stuff. It's awesome. Great.
Yeah. I love that. I love hearing stories with different people, their personalities and shit like that. He seemed like he had a good personality. The Super Bowl stuff, you get to see a lot of guys in Media Week. Yeah, and
that's
stuff. That's cool. I love that. Really cool. Well, Gary, man, this was fun. You want to leave any of the listeners with anything where they can find you? What's the best way to go? Yeah,
I'm GLS_GOATA_training on Instagram, GLS_training on Twitter. I kind of shut my Twitter down a while back. It ain't that big. But GOATAmovement.com, you can find everything.
That's the spot.
If you hit me up on Instagram and you want to do some virtual work or you want information on one of our DIY programs, you could find me. 504-223-4355 is my number.
Love it. We're going to put it all in the show notes. Yeah. This was awesome. And again, thank you for having me down there.
Yeah.
Looking forward to training some more and learning some more.
Throw that pitch.
Let's go, baby. 100.
Yep.
GOATA.
That's it.